So, you're a new dungeon master about to run Dungeons & Dragons for the first time, are you? You typed help into Google and you ended up here. Welcome! Today we'll be discussing 15 things all new DMs should know. And if you still have questions, I have a massive library of videos covering all things dungeon mastering that you can binge on. I have almost weekly Q&A live streams where you can ask me your questions. And I have a welcoming and friendly Discord community full of fellow dungeon masters who can help. Now that we got a bunch of plugs out of the way, woo! Let's do this. They're like, this guy's crazy. Let's go to the next video that Google recommended me. Number 1, you'll never feel like you're ready. Just start. No matter how much you read the rulebooks, no matter how much you flesh out your campaign setting, no matter how much you prep that adventure, no matter how many times you study the manual you'll be running, no matter what you do, you will never feel ready. I'm not ragging on being prepared either. Some of the very best dungeon masters prepare their butts off for their games. You do want to prepare, but there's gonna be a point where you just need to start. Put that group together, pull that trigger, and start running D&D for your friends or that crew of crazy strangers you assembled on Roll20 or my Discord server, because lots of people find D&D groups on my Discord server. There's another plug for you. I'm so good at this. Number 2, you don't need to know all the rules. First, for anyone who thinks it's even possible to know all the rules, yeah, you're wrong. There are far too many rules for any one person, even if they wear the mantle of Dungeon Master, to have memorized. Now, should you just flagrantly ignore the rules and just wing everything? No, of course not. It's crazy talk. It's just stupidity. You just playing random old, I just made up a game. I don't even know the rules. We're gonna call it D&D, but if you look at it, it resembles nothing to D&D. Some of you are like, Luke, I've been in those games. I've been in lots of those games. Yeah. Anyway, running a game like that would be as foolish as trying to memorize all the rules. You can't be like, whoa, either extreme. Either extreme is probably not gonna work. So, read the rules, have a good idea of where to find specific rules when they come up in the game, and make a good effort. But don't feel like you need to know everything. I've been running 5th edition for, half a decade now, with at least one group every single week. And I don't have everything memorized, and I still bust out the books and look things up from time to time. Number 3, start small. The act of creation is something that inspires many game masters. Some of us are content with creating cool adventures and terrifying monsters, but others strive to create entirely new worlds within which those adventures take place and those monsters dwell. And there will be a strong temptation to create everything, to have it all done and ready and fleshed out before you begin playing. You must resist that temptation. And even more than that, I advise you to start small. Only create one adventure for your players to go on. Only create one town, and perhaps flesh out the forest to the north and the swamp to the west. But that's it, no more. That's enough to start playing the game, and then you can expand on it as you go. By the way, if you're looking for high quality Dungeon Master resources you can use in your games, my Lairs and Legends Kickstarter is launching soon. It will consist of 2 beautiful hardcover books containing 5th edition adventures, maps designed for use on virtual tabletops, puzzles, traps, new monsters, NPCs, villains, standalone encounters, and more. All of the content is designed to be easy to use at the game table, especially for new dungeon masters, and will reduce your prep time and improve your games. Click the Lairs and Legends link below to be notified when the Kickstarter goes live. Number 4, you don't need to run your game like a famous DM on a D&D show. More so, I might add that if you try, you'll probably fail. I know that everyone is captivated by famous dungeon masters running D&D shows. I mean, look at the success of shows such as Critical Role. Many DMs aspire to run games as fun as those shows are entertaining. However, I must caution you, especially since we're talking to potential new dungeon masters here, that those are D&D shows. Are they playing D&D? Yes, they are. Is it scripted? No, I don't think it is. But it's still a show whose primary goal is the entertainment of the audience and all of the cast members work together to that end. You are not running a D&D show. Well, at least I think you're probably not trying to do that. Instead, you're running a D&D game, I'll wager. And your primary goal should be the entertainment of your players. Can you learn things from those DMs on those shows you watch? Absolutely, of course you can. But if your expectation is to run D&D games that look like what you see on TV, you're probably gonna end up disappointed. And that's okay, because number 5, your players aren't judging you as much as you think they are. Dungeon masters worry too much. Am I a good DM? Are my players having fun? Do my players think I suck, but they just don't wanna leave because they don't wanna make me feel bad? Look, my advice is to stop beating yourself up. Most players just want to hang out with friends, eat junk food, kill monsters, experience a cool story, and laugh together at equally hilarious and stupid moments that arise in the game. And I might add, many players are just grateful to have a dungeon master who is actually running the game for them. Because there are lots of people who want to play the game, but they can't find DMs to run it for them. So relax. If you see your players laughing and smiling, if they come back week after week, then you're probably doing just fine. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, perhaps even finding it mildly useful, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm down below. Let YouTube know your favorite flavor of asparagus, and that I don't completely suck. Favorite flavor of asparagus. I just increased the Google search results for asparagus. Like, what flavors of asparagus are there? And Google's like, what's going on? Pro tip, there are 9 flavors of asparagus. You let me know what those 9 flavors are down in the comments and you're gonna get a bonus prize. Number 6, you don't need fancy miniatures to run an amazing game. I know they look cool, I know they do. But you do not need to dump bunches of money into buying cool terrain and miniatures to run a great game for you and your players. Terrain and minis can enhance a game, to be sure, but there are thousands of groups that have a blast every week without them. So if you don't have the budget for them, or you don't want to invest a bunch of money into the game before you really get serious about it, that's perfectly fine. You can run theater of the mind. I even recently made a video with tips on how to do so. And your game can still be plenty levels of awesome. Number 7, you will have bad game sessions, and that's okay. Even experienced game masters have crappy game sessions. It happens. Don't be surprised when a game session completely bombs. I mean, you're just starting out, so it's probably gonna happen from time to time. I mean, nobody learns to fly a plane without crashing into cornfields at least a few times, right? Am I right or am I right? Anybody who can fly a plane, you let me know in the comments. I'm right. Many a cornfield has died in a blaze of flames and explosions from planes crashing into them. We all know this, it's common knowledge. Anyway, the important thing is to not give up. Don't beat yourself up and learn from those bad sessions. What went wrong? What didn't work? How can I make it better for next time? Number 8, your fun matters too. Dungeon masters always worry about their players having fun, but never forget that your fun as a dungeon master is important too. I mean, D&D is a game. Why are you playing it if it's not to have fun? My guess is you're probably not getting paid to be a dungeon master. I mean, right? I mean, you're lucky if they bring you pizza and chips or something, and half the time you gotta buy it yourself. So yes, you want to run a game that your players will enjoy, but you need to also run a game that you will enjoy. For instance, I personally love tactical combat. If I ever had a group of players that didn't want combat in their game, like you can go onto Twitch, the D&D area of Twitch, and watch games like all day long that have like no combat in them. They're just sitting around and talking. And yeah, I could not play a game like that. I'd just be bored out of my mind. Anyway, if I were in a game like that, my players didn't want anything to do with combat, I would probably step down and let someone else run that game. It just wouldn't interest me. That would be a hard pass. I'm not really knocking games that don't have combat. I'm just really saying that I like combat in my D&D game. That's all I'm really saying here. Because it is like 90% of the rule books have to do with combat. That might give you an inkling as to what the D&D game was kind of made. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. Anyway, next point here. Also remember that your players share responsibility for the fun. Everyone at the game table should be contributing positively to the atmosphere and making the game more enjoyable by their presence. When you discover that you have a player who is a complete downer and overall detracts from everyone's fun, maybe they want to argue about everything, maybe they have a pissy attitude that kills the vibe, whatever it is, it's time to consider a game in which that player is not there. What's that mean, Luke? What does that mean? Number 9, the DM presents situations, the players create the solutions. The players and the dice write the story, not the dungeon master. Let me repeat, the players and the dice write the story, not the dungeon master. You are not writing a story as the DM. You create situations, adventures, problems that your players' characters engage with and try to overcome through their PC abilities, dice rolls, and brain power. What happens as a result of all of that coming together is the story. But the dungeon master does not determine what will happen before the game session even begins. That's not a game, that's a frustrated novelist who can't get published, forcing their half-baked novel upon their players. And if I just offended you, that may have been slightly intentional. Because don't do that, it's not fun. Let me be clear though. Forcing your story upon the players is not the same as running a linear adventure. Linear adventures are perfectly fine. You don't have to run a sandbox, especially as a new game master. Because the fact of the matter is that true sandboxes are very challenging to run. And if you want to learn more about this, I do have a video titled The Sandbox versus the Railroad on this topic, as well as on the topic of linear adventures, which often get mislabeled as railroads. They're not, they're two different things. I feel strongly about this, could you tell? Number 10, no matter how much you plan, you won't be able to escape improvisation. It is the nature of D&D that your players will do things you can't anticipate, and you'll need to think on the fly and improvise. Now, many people will quip, "No plan survives first contact with the players," and then use that to justify not planning at all. Those people are morons. Don't listen to them. Sorry if that's you. Leave your angry comment down below. Our complaint department addresses all grievances in due time, I assure you. Because the fact of the matter is that the more you plan, the easier it is to improvise. So still plan. Still be prepared for your game. However, expect that you will need to improvise from time to time and then just do the best you can. And also realize that you'll get better at improvising as you get more experienced at running the game. Number 11. Follow the rules in the books. Dude, you just started playing the game. You don't even know all the rules, let alone the reasons behind why the game designers made them the way they did. My advice is to play the game for a year or two using the rules as written, often called raw, so that you get a feel for them and understand them better, and the rationale behind them before you start making a bunch of house rules. Not right now, but my friend the dungeon coach is like, "But Luke!" And I'm just like, no! And this is where we have a disagreement and our two channels fight each other to the death. Number 12, communicate with your players. As I mentioned before, I have weekly live streams where I answer questions from viewers. And I crap you not, the answer to 80% of the questions I get essentially boils down to talk to your players. Your players are always ignoring the plot hooks for the adventures you prepare. Talk to them. Ask them to just go on the adventure you prepared so you're not winging everything, freaking out, and getting frustrated. Go over expectations. No unauthorized dice touching. Dice touching. This is stupid. What stupid book was that in? I think it was in Tasha's, where they're like, go over game expectations, including dice touching, because not all groups agree with dice touching. I'm like, oh, shut up. Really? Shut up. Dice touching. Don't touch my dice. Don't touch my... Maybe people do get triggered by that, but they need to calm down. Holy crap. They're just dice, buddy. You're gonna be okay. Sorry, I just offended more people. It's what I do around here. But seriously, you really should talk about the sort of role-playing behavior that is okay and what's not okay, such as, I don't know, role-playing a rape scene? Most folk are probably not going to be comfortable with that. So if you don't have the common sense and discretion to just not do it, then maybe you should talk to your players first. And for me personally, whenever I get frustrated with something in the game, I just level with my players. You guys, the constant side conversations are making it hard for me to run the game. Could we save those for the breaks or pre and post game or something? Remember, your players cannot read your mind. If there is an issue, you need to let them know what it is and see if there is a resolution the group can decide upon. Number 13, avoid the scheduling spiral of death. This is what you should do. Pick a reoccurring day of the week and time that most players can make most of the time, and then stick with it. My Curse of Strahd group plays every other week on Sunday at 4 p.m. That's our schedule, we stick to it. This allows for everyone in the group to plan for the game in advance and usually be there. This is what you should not do. Wait until the end of a game session to figure out the next time the group can play according to everyone's calendars and schedules. This results in infrequent and sporadic game sessions that often cause the campaign and game to fizzle out. This is also what you should not do. Only play when everyone can make the session or reschedule if everyone can't be there. This has the same effect. Infrequent games and campaigns fizzling out. We call this the scheduling spiral of death around here. Case in point, my Youngling game seems to have recently suffered this fate. We only ever played when everyone could make the game sessions, and we'd always schedule the next game at the end of the session. Now, I know this was not a best practice. I know that this was probably eventually gonna cause everything to go and yeah, but it's the way we did things for reasons that I won't go into here. And now that game appears to have fizzled out. It sucks too, because I really loved playing with those kids. They were like in high school by the time. Yeah, they're like high school now, so they're still kids. I'm an old man. I can still call them kids. Number 14, avoid saying no. Instead, ask how. First, it's okay to say no when a player wants to do something. However, before you just rule something out, ask the player how their character would do X thing. It's possible they will think of a way that it might be possible. Possible that it might be possible. And then you can let the dice decide. And if they can't think of how it might be possible to accomplish X thing, well, then they usually talk themselves out of even trying, and you don't even have to tell them no. You can also use the classic yes but, where their PC can attempt X thing, but have limitations or grave consequences if they fail. Can I jump across the crevasse? Well, you can try, but it's a long and difficult jump. If you fail, you're probably gonna fall to your death. And failing all of that, it's okay to just say no when a player is simply asking for the impossible. Number 15, D&D is not Dungeon Master versus players. I don't know if this was in the rule books when you read it, but it was there for me. Dungeons & Dragons is not a competitive game. There are no winners and losers. A Dungeon Master shouldn't have the mindset of trying to beat the player's characters. I mean, that's silly to begin with. And if a Dungeon Master really wanted to do that, all they need to have is 100 ancient dragons swoop out of the sky. Game over. Beating the PCs would be trivial. It's meaningless. Instead, a game master should be striving to deliver a challenging but rewarding game experience to their players. And the game master, while playing the monsters to win, because the bad guys definitely want to win, should also be rooting for the players and hoping that they overcome the challenge and that the bad guys lose. Click on the screen now to binge another fine DM Lair video or to become a DM Lair patron and get an issue of Lair magazine every month. And until next time, eat your asparagus. But what flavor, Luke?